Welcome to the Retail Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Darius Wasafi, and today I'm speaking with Harrison Lewis, the Chief Information Officer for Northgate Gonzales LLC. Harrison has a deep understanding of the prepared foods, specialty foods, and financial services business and how IT plays into the success formula along with its challenges. I want to tell you about Visional Commerce. Visional is the first truly integrated live video commerce platform for online to offline sales of products that need guidance from a product expert or maker. Products such as furniture, art, jewelry, watches, interior design, vintage clothing, home improvement, automotive, and a lot of other product types. Visional is a local retailer's most effective weapon for fighting online commerce retailers by enabling retailers to double down on their built-in advantages. Visional also saves shoppers hours of commute time and hassle, while still receiving the best service from a local retailer, even better than they would in a store sometimes. For more information on how Visional helps retailers and shoppers, go to visional.co, visional.co. Now on to our interview. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
What is Northgate Gonzales?
So I'm the Chief Information Officer with Northgate Gonzales, and so we have a number of businesses. The two kind of more significant of those is the markets themselves, which is an emphasis on fresh and prepared foods. We've got 40 of those locations throughout Southern California. They kind of go between Los Angeles and San Diego, and it's really about kind of creating this kind of unique and authentic experience for our customers. And then the other is the financial services organization, and that financial services organization is really focused around the unbanked and the unbanked and the underbanked, providing money transfers, check cashing, loans, insurance, a number of different services to our customers.
The role of the CIO is supposed to be getting easier, but it's not.
In some ways, it is a lot more complicated, but I guess it's kind of a world I've lived in for quite some time. But I think also it's gotten simpler from a standpoint. And a lot of my peers I talk to, I ask them questions. I say, well, how much of your time is spent on kind of the running of IT as opposed to the growing of the business, and really working with and helping to grow the business. And and it's interesting that I'm hearing numbers. I'm hearing 80% is focused on growing the business, and 20% being running the business, and that's kind of where I am. It wouldn't be very long ago that you would have heard just the opposite, that only 20% would be in the position of helping the organizations grow. And they spend 80% of the time in the running of IT.
Okay, so that's very interesting. What specific activities does the CIO engage in to help grow the business?
One side of it is ensuring that the architecture and the infrastructure is positioned and nimble enough to serve where inevitably the business is going. And it's not really about asking the business in terms of where they're going. I mean, that certainly is very important. But in looking at what's happening out there, being able to then design and implement an architecture that provides the flexibility and that it's nimble, that it can scale up and scale down. And then the other is being able to demonstrate to the business in terms of what's possible. Because, in the absence of that, then what happens, the business will think about ways of solving problems that are traditional, as opposed to being able to have an understanding of what's possible. And many of these things, it may not necessarily the solution or a demonstration of what's possible might not be something that they've seen in their industry. It may be something that exists outside of their industry or outside of the U.S. Trends that are occurring. That's kind of the unique thing that a CIO can bring, to the business Now, certainly the business owns and has responsibility in terms of the business problem and the opportunity, but engaging with the business and being able to say, let me understand what that opportunity is. Let me understand what that problem is. And then given the understanding of what's possible, it moves us, so much further. In fact, there's a lot of things that that we deal with, and our business folks they deal with. They say, "Well, here's an opportunity, but I can't seize on that opportunity." It's been because technically it wasn't possible previously, and now it is possible, and it's an opportunity that we are able to seize on those opportunities and address those business problems and today in a way that we could not have done previously.
That's a very important change that's happening and needs to happen in today's organizations, grocery or not. And I want to come back and touch on that a little bit later. Moving on to really like the type of technology you are responsible for.
Integration is absolutely something that has to be a core competency, for our organization. Um, I go as far as I think with any organization, but certainly that's the case for our organization. I think from a standpoint of data management is the other competency that we have to have. That is an area of differentiation. Architecture is the other thing that we have to be able to bring, and then the other is vendor relationship management is a competency that we have to have as an IT organization. And then the relationship management, which is about empathizing and relating to, and with our business partners. Security is another area. So information security is an area that we have to have as a competency as an IT organization.
Do you have your own data center or do you use the cloud?
We're a hybrid, and I'm actually a big proponent of hybrid. We have two data centers, one in Anaheim, the other in Mesa, California, as well as we have presence on the cloud, and we've got AWS, Azure, as well as establishing with Google. And then we're dealing with other entities that on a private cloud that we have to integrate and are kind of an extension of our environment.
Would that be an area where you work with VMware?
Absolutely. When it comes down to the VMware and their SD-WAN solution, that is kind of one of the things that has to be one of our core competencies and things that, something that we bring to the organization that has enabled us to be able to extend our network and do that, securely into these various environments. And so, what we've done, we've standardized on the VMware SD-WAN solution across the entire organization, the entire enterprise. We have an SD-WAN kind of node at each of our locations, whether that be the market, or whether that be a financial service, standalone location, whether that be in our data center, in each of our data centers. We're leveraging public cloud providers as well. It's been just a really, really powerful solution that ensures that we have the reliability, the resiliency, the security, on our network. I view it as a differentiator, something that kind of sets us apart from many other organizations in terms of their capabilities.
Just to learn a little bit more, it's an additional piece of hardware, like that you connect to your switches.
We're using an appliance, and you can take this. It's software, and so you can take a different approach. But what we did was we implemented an appliance that we have at each of the locations. And we have on that appliance comes into our switch, and what we do is coming into that appliance, which is what we run, is we've got in each of our locations we run two broadband And so ideally we have, disparate carriers. And, we're taking, whatever's available in terms of the broadband. And we also have a cradle point with the a 4G that we run as a backup. And so if the terrestrial, something happens to the terrestrials, then we've got the wireless, the 4G. The technology bundles all of that and is creating, with the software, is then creating effectively a virtual network for us. And so we are able to maintain and set prioritization at the application level. It gives us visibility of the application, gives us, it is addressing their performance. So doing some level of WAN optimization. The situation that we have is that if we get a degradation or there's an outage on one, then the other is, it knows how to take over and knows how to prioritize on it and such. As a result, we don't have, situations with outages. Before, what we were doing was we had an MPLS, and we were running two T1, so we had 3 megs up and down. It's very expensive. We were still that situation where we're running a 3G and 4G wireless as a backup. It helped us in some ways, but it was expensive as well as it wasn't reliable. And then we transitioned over to and implemented the SD-WAN. It increased our bandwidth, increased our performance, increased our reliability, as well as then being able to do that securely.
Do you provide like free Wi-Fi in the stores to shoppers?
We provide kind of an internet-only services in each of our locations, where a lot of what we're doing in the IoT runs off of that, and so we've got the segmentation of the network, and we have that in place, and we are in the we're weeks out of implementing a guest Wi-Fi that is also leveraging the SD-WAN technology along with our Wi-Fi, our solution.
From a consumer's point of view, it's almost becoming like expected to have Wi-Fi into any store you go into, and I'm always interested to learn how practical, or what's the ROI on the business side actually to do that. I mean, do you actually make more sales? Do the sales go up? What's the benefit that can be like tied back into the business side from that?
The tie back to the business is what is really about the information, the data. If we simply just provided, guest Wi-Fi, it's a service to customers. It may help them, because they have access to, with the data plans and those kinds of things that come with a lot of the smartphones and the smart devices. It's really kind of a non-issue there. But I think it's less of an issue now in terms of providing guest Wi-Fi. But in terms of providing guest Wi-Fi and then being able to gather information about some of the and learn more about the customer. So what are they? What are the different types of devices they're coming in on? What kind of what are the types of sites that they're going to? Kind of what are the things that they're interested in? The other is being able to use that with beacons and things like that, to be able to kind of push to know that they're there, and then to be able to push information to the customer. by way of that device, because that device is, you know that you have the presence of that device. Those are all the things that are going to be necessary before an organization can really see the value in providing, guest Wi-Fi.
What kind of tracking capabilities you actually have when somebody joins your Wi-Fi?
You would know the type of device that they're coming in on. You would know the site that you're coming in on. You don't necessarily know, what they looked at and what they queried and that kind of thing. That's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Uh, but certainly, being able, and then knowing, that they do. That's the store that they frequent, in a way that you wouldn't necessarily know. And then, based on that location, being able to say, based on that the location, based on that customer, being able to then, say that this customer, if there's some type of special event that, we do at that particular location, that it could be relevant to that customer. So example is, we do, breast cancer screening. We do cooking classes. We do, different types of events.
Wow.
Christmas tree lightings and those types of things. Well, if I know that that customer, frequents that particular location, then and then, based on the type of sites that they visit, it helps me to understand their propensity, from a standpoint of being able to gauge their interest, and then be able to present, that something to, based on the type of site someone goes to. You might be able to determine whether they are male or female. You might be able to determine whether or not they, even to the extent that their age. Someone went to a site and they were in a store and they went to a site around recipes, right? You might be able to say that that person, and you may not necessarily know that they're male or female, but you might know that they're interested in preparing, at home meals, and as a result, that there is something that, so a cooking class that you might be interested in.
Okay.
If you knew that they were male or female, you might make a determination that, you might be able to infer and then test out that could be, that they might be interested in, breast cancer screening, or they're interested in, diabetes, control management and those kinds of things.
Right. And then be able to help them with more options on those things in the future. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great data capture, as long as you mentioned, we don't get into the creepy factor side of things. I think the data is really valuable. You have to provide like an incentive for the shopper to actually join the network, right?
It's about, offering, explaining the services, and that having services that are that there's an interest in that, for that customer base, or actually for the customer that you're interested, or that you're interested in serving. And because it's not really about everybody, it's about, that here is, the profile of my core customer, whether that be on the financial services side or on the market side. And then what are the things that are relevant to that customer, and then, being able to get that information in front of that customer, that here is the services, and here's the value proposition. And then, clearly that it's something that they're opting into, and you're doing, only that which you said you're going to do, in terms of those services, or providing, or with that information.
Right.
And then the other part of it is then, and then if you have another service that you think that might be relevant for that customer, is then being able to, present that to them. And I think that, really going down into, rather than having this whole thing of personalization, and I think the personalization that's been overused. I think of it in terms of really about relevance. That me, There's things that I've told you about me or that you've observed about me, and you're using that information to to provide me to better serve me.
Mm-hmm.
An example would be, you go into, maybe years ago, you went into a butcher store, right? Or I go to a cleaner today, and I have a dialogue with the lady who's on the lady and her husband who was on that cleaner for many years. And she tells me about her son and her kids, we talk about our children and that kind of thing. She talks to me about her business and the expensive and it's hot and it's this and it's that, right? And she also learned some things about my clothing preferences. She knows things about my wife and those kinds of things. When I walk in that store, she doesn't ask me my number anymore. She knows me and she goes immediately looks it up. And she knows what my preferences are in terms of whether it be washed or dry cleaned and that kind of thing. And it's really about going back to that, but using information and data to be able to really speak to kind of relevant and ways of being able to connect with customers and to serve customers quickly, as opposed to waiting for someone to be made. That I've got to come and make have several different visits with you, and then over time it warms up, and then you say, okay, well, I think that you are someone of value. Instead, being able to look at certain types of behavior to then determine propensity, and then treat that customer based on what you believe that person to be, or who you believe that person to be.
So let's talk a little bit now more about the actual grocery business and how it's changing with technology. Of course, Amazon is starting with the Amazon Go, which is basically no human beings. At least, I mean, there are human beings in there for like helping people yet right now, but that's the future. And then grocery stores have been testing the automated or the self checkout for a while anyway. What are your thoughts on those?
I think certainly, like with Amazon, I believe that that you've got this. I think it's kind of interesting, is that you start off online, and then you transition to in the brick and mortar, and then you've got the brick and mortar that's kind of trying to transition to the online. And I think, online inherently has its benefits, but also it has its limitations. And I think it works well for things that are really about a commodity type of thing. Brick and mortar works well when you've got a product or a service that is really very difficult to translate when it comes down to the online, because it isn't something that is a commodity. And so people have to, touch it. They have to feel it. They have to smell it. They have to taste it, and those kinds of things. And so much of what we do is, I think is I know myself, and people that I know, so much of what happens is based on kind of responding to an impulse. And so the idea that, I think that both have to exist, and it's not one or the other. And I think that they all really converge. But I think at its core, still are about, I think people are, that it's about people. And I think it's people serving people. Now, doing so in a very efficient manner, where you've got people that are serving, that have their appropriate tools in order to be able to do that effectively and efficient. And then you've got customers and you're creating an environment where customers that they can that is efficient for them for kind of like the commodity types of things, but then it's exciting, and it's exploratory. It kind of pulls on all of those senses, in terms of sight and smell and taste and those kinds of things that cannot translate to the online. And quite frankly, even with the 3D and everything else, I
Right.
still think that people that whole relating thing is that there's something there, and I think as long as we have humans we're dealing with humans that'll always be necessary.
As a consumer, me personally, I love to go to the market because I can see things, I can smell things, I can check them, but I don't have time to do it all the time.
Right, right.
I was speaking with a young entrepreneur yesterday, and he said he doesn't remember the last time he was in a market because he just
Yeah.
orders everything online. What do you think about the role of delivery? Like, does every grocery store have to join and partner with the delivery partner now?
Delivery is a very important component, and also being able to do so that works with the customer. If I had to go in and schedule out, and I use Lyft and I use Uber, there's a lot of value that I find in being able to go to an app and then be able to say, okay, I am, I'm going to this place here, and it tells me and I've got about a wait time of maybe, 5, 10 minutes, and, it's going to be done. This whole thing of scheduling and saying, well, here's when I'm going to be, and then I got to try to figure out, okay, can I be home by that time, and that type of thing. I think there's another way of doing that. And the other way of doing that might be is that I go and I place my order, and then when I get home, when I know I'm going to be home, I then simply say, okay, deliver it, and within 15 minutes or 20 minutes, it shows up. I think that is a better way than kind of how we traditionally have seen this. I think the other is, you're going to have from a delivery standpoint, there are going to be places that I enjoy that are not necessarily, it's not feasible for them to deliver it to me because of the distance, and or it may not be cost effective. And so that instance, I think there's a place there for a pickup, and whether that be I do a drive through and I identify myself, or it knows that I'm there because my car or the presence of my app with me. That then it goes up and I pull up, and and if they put the whatever it is I ordered in my car, and I drive off and I drive home, and I'm able to do that because it's more convenient for me.
Right.
So I think there's a place there for the pickup at the location as well as the delivery, but the delivery for me looks a little different than what I've seen so far.
As long as the window of delivery is not like 4 hours, like when they deliver your furniture or something, I
Yeah.
think it needs to, if it's close to the time that you're going to be home, definitely it's going to be value. And now, of course, Amazon is trying to get automated systems so that they
Yeah.
can actually go into people's homes without them even being there, which
Yeah.
is a really interesting concept. TBD, I guess, how it's going to work out.
The delivery piece of it, and the idea of having someone else, pick my product and that kind of thing, is I think this whole personalization and being able to learn about the customer's preferences, and then be able to remember those preferences, and then be able to deliver against that in a way, and get close to how they would shop. Because they're different. As it gets to like the commodity types of items, if I'm talking about a box of Cheerios or whatever, well, that's easy, right?
Right.
But then you've got the ones which is around, fresh product, and kind of what my preferences are, as it relates to whether it be bananas or green onions, or a red onion, even the size of it, or tomatoes, and the size, and the or avocados, and what's the level of ripeness and that kind of thing. Those are all kind of nuances that I think there's an opportunity to learn about the customer's preferences, and then being able to remember and then leverage that information in that whole selection and picking process.
I really appreciate the insight. Hopefully we can, continue and touch base again.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and I really I enjoy the conversation, and you've asked some very interesting questions, and these opinions are all my own.
Yes, quote unquote on that. Yes. All right. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.